Parshas B'Shalach. Parshas B'Shalach. Okay, Parshas B'Shalach. That's what we learned this week in. We're learning this week, and we read in the synagogue this whole Torah portion of B'Shalach. What's B'Shalach? The main thing of B'Shalach is that the Jews went across the sea, but there's also a whole thing about the manna falling, and in the end, it's talking about Amalek. Amalek attacks the Jews, and we defeat them. Okay, the year that the Rebbe spoke, this was said in 1992, and it ended up that the Chabad holiday of Yud Shvat, which Yud Shvat is the day that the previous Rebbe, Lubavitcher Rebbe, passed away, and 1 year later, the same date, Yud Shvat, the 10th day of Shvat, the Rebbe took over. That was in 1950, Tavshin Yud. The Rebbe took over the leadership of Chabad. So that was a special holiday. And that year, it fell out on Wednesday. So Wednesday. So we talked about this a little bit. This year, it did not fall on Wednesday. So let's just skip over this. Okay. Okay. This especially is relevant to this Shabbat. This Shabbat. What's the Shabbat? The Shabbat is the Shabbat called Shabbat Shira, the Sabbath of song. Song. Why is this called the Sabbath of song? Because the Jewish people sang a song. We're reading about the song that the Jewish people sang after they crossed the sea and saw all the Egyptians drowned in the sea. Shabo Mudgash, then it's the idea of Lachud Ranana, to sing. The Rebbe said over here that because Yud Shvat, and that year fell on Wednesday, and on Wednesday, the fourth day of the week, in the Holy Temple, the Levites would sing a different psalm every day. And we say that psalm. We say that on Wednesday, the psalm that they say ends up with Lechu Naranana, let us go and sing. And that reminds us that we're approaching Shabbat, Okay, so it says, therefore, let us go and sing. So it says, this coming Shabbat is talking about also singing. This reminds us of the singing that was the fourth day of the week when they celebrated back then, Yud Shvat. Okay, singing. Yom Tov Yoter, especially, that the whole idea of a song. What is a song? Song is especially relevant to Shabbat. If you remember, we just finished learning in the Mimer, the song the Jewish people sang when they went across the sea was not so much because of what happened, but the song was to elevate them. The song itself aroused them. Remember we learned that? You can sing an old song and it still arouses you, right? To have a feeling, to have emotions. So song arouses your emotions. That's the same thing. It brings out what's inside. And that's the song. This Shabbat, coming Shabbat is called the Shabbat of song, Shabbat Shira. Like it says, there's a Mishnah in Shabbat, and it says, "Call Bali Shir, Yotzim Bashir v'Nimshachim Bashir." It's forbidden for you to use your animals. This is just a forward to what we're talking about. It's forbidden for a person to carry things outside by means of his animals. But if the animal always has, let's say, a ring around its neck or something like that, then the animal can go out. That's not considered to be that your animal is carrying for you. The name for a ring around an animal's neck is called a shear. That's what it's called, a shear. The word for singing is called a shear. Same word. So the simple meaning of the Mishnah is any animal which always goes around with a ring, right, which always wears a ring around its neck, can go out with a shear, and with a ring, you can put the ring around its neck, even going out into a public domain. And nimshachim b'shir, and you can also move the animal, right? You can, if you have a rope or whatever, you can move the animal. There's a way to move the animal with this shear. You can grab a hold of this ring and move the animal with the ring. Okay, that's a simple meaning, right? You're not allowed to have your animals carry, but if your animal has a ring around its neck, then it can go out with this ring. The ring is called a shear. A simple meaning, that's the simple meaning, but a little deeper, what do they call it? A midrashic meaning is that any people who sing, then you go out with your song and you draw down by means of your song. Shekol aliyah, that any elevation from level to level, which goes from one level to the other, is by means of song. And therefore, gam aliyat and olamos, the elevation of the worlds on Shabbat, is by means of a song. The Yeshlom, we can say the ikar aliyah, that the main elevation on the day of Shabbat by means of the song is this Shabbat. That's why the angels sing out to God. Umimeno, from it, because that song, their elevation, that elevates them. Umimeno, from it, nimshach gam b'shar Shabbat, and from this Shabbat is the main Sabbath of singing that's drawn down to all of the other Shabbats of the year. Umizer, from this, because Shabbat is the thing of elevation, so it's understood, also relevant to Aliyah's, to elevation, also on the Yom Hilula, on the day of passing away of a tzaddik. The previous Lubavitcher Rebbe passed away on the 10th day of Shvat. That's the thing of elevation. Like it's known that on the day a person passes away, there was an infinite, incomparable elevation to the soul than it was on any of the other days. And if you have a big person that's a general soul, like the previous Rebbe, that he cared about every Jew, he influenced every Jew, so his elevation is our elevation, that the main elevation of all of the souls, and even the souls of the great tzaddikim, the holy people, is Shabbat Shira, this Shabbat. So this coming Shabbat is, we can call it the Sabbath of elevation. Usually every Shabbat, the energy of the previous week goes up. The example is always given, let's say a painter, that he paints a picture, so he's putting all his energy into the picture. Then when he finishes the picture, he sits back and he goes, oh, this is nice, looks at it. And then he looks at it a little bit longer, and then he really appreciates it. He appreciates the beauty. The same thing, 6 days of the week, we work serving God. The nighttime of Shabbat, we're finished. We're happy we're finished. And the daytime of Shabbos is even, we get satisfaction from finishing. The daytime of Shabbos, we get even more satisfaction. That means that all the energy that we put into the picture, it comes back up to the author. The same thing, God is creating the world in the 6 days. On Shabbat, the energy of all the world goes up to God, and that's in the nighttime, and the daytime even more. That's in every Shabbat. This Shabbat is called the Shabbat of song. The whole thing we talked about going elevation, I think that's the idea of a song. Song elevates a person, takes a person out. The Inyan Nosaf, an additional thing. I mean, I think that's the reason why that, singers, rock and roll singers, whatever, are so popular. Because you got a person that basically has no training. He has just has a nice voice. He has a nice voice and carry. And then people, everybody, millions of people come to see him. He packs things. What did he do? He sings. He knows how to sing. You can get somebody who knows how to juggle, that you have to work for who knows how many years to learn how to juggle. A person who's a mathematician, a person who's strong, he can lift up, 5,000 pounds with one hand. Okay, that's an accomplishment. A guy gets on the stage, he knows how to sing. It's no big accomplishment. But singing itself elevates. It sort of takes you out of the world. It makes you a little bit higher. That's what it's supposed to do. I mean, there's bad songs also that the bad take you down. But generally speaking, song does something. This Shabbat is called the Sabbath of song. Sabbath itself is an elevation, and the Sabbath of song is like a double elevation. There's also another special thing is if Yud Shvat falls on Thursday, on Wednesday, which it doesn't this year, it did that year. But we said the good thing is that we read in the song of the day, the psalm of the day, we read about the song, L'chun Ranana. There's another good thing that the Shabbat after, which this is true for this year also, the Shabbat after Yud Shvat includes in it also Tu B'Shvat. Tu B'Shvat, which is in this year when the Rebbe spoke, it came after Shabbat. By us, this year, Tu B'Shvat is going to be tomorrow. So this coming Shabbat is going to include in it Yud Shvat, which was the last Shabbat, and also Tu B'Shvat, which we learned Tu B'Shvat is the day, the New Year's Day for trees, which that we just finished learning. Oh, we didn't finish that one, did we? Okay, we'll go back to that. We'll go back to what we learned. We were supposed to finish that, and I didn't finish. Okay. We'll see tomorrow, God willing. Maybe I'll finish the Dvar Malchut. I'll do that after class because a lot of people, many more people watch this on YouTube than nothing against you guys who are coming to the class, but so maybe I'll just put it up. Okay, here we go. So we're starting this. So Tu B'Shvat. So this coming Shabbat is an elevation for Tu B'Shvat and also an elevation for the 10th day of Shvat, Yud Shvat, which was before it. Okay. Al-Pia Yadua, like it's known that all the holidays of the year, even the holidays which were made by the rabbis, like Tu B'Shvat, all of them are relevant to the parsha of the week that they occur in. So this week, what's the parsha that we're learning? This Shabbat is the Shabbat of song, which everything is elevated, and it elevates the whole previous week, which in the previous week had Tu B'Shvat, which is going to be tomorrow, and Yud Shvat, which was on Shabbat, elevated. And also this coming Shabbat is Bashalach. Bashalach, part of the Shavua, which includes the day of the Rebbe passing away and the Shabbat afterwards, and also the Shabbat, which comes not this coming Shabbat, but the Shabbat afterwards is Yitro. These are the weeks, these two portions elevate Yud Shvat and Tu B'Shvat. Okay. So, of course, Yitro is the Torah portion where it talks about receiving the Torah. When God gave the Jews the 10 Commandments. That's Parshas Yitro. And Bashalach is the preparation for that when the Jews went over the sea. And the Rebbe is saying that this coming Shabbat of elevation, which is talking about going across the sea, is elevating this whole business. So let's see. First of all, let's talk about what is the common theme in Bashalach and Yitro, preparation for the giving of the Torah. In Parshat Bashalach, that talks about how the Jews completely left Egypt. Splitting of the sea, drowning of the Egyptians, Jews were out. That's it. No more Egypt, no more Egyptians, no more slavery. That's when the Jews became free. That's the 7th day of Passover. That's when the sea split. That's it. We're out. Why did they get out of Egypt? Because they weren't just going from Egypt, they were going to receiving the Torah. This is a preparation for receiving the Torah. Like it says, when they're taking the people out of Egypt, you will serve God on this mountain. This is what God said at the burning bush. The burning bush was on Mount Sinai. So God said to Moses, in the merit of the fact that you're going to receive, that's one of the explanations, the fact that you're going to receive the Torah here, and that merit, I'm going to take the Jews out of Egypt. That's why I'm doing all these miracles. Parshat Yitro, the Torah portion of Yitro, that's in addition to the fact that it's talking about receiving the Torah, is also talking about in the beginning, and that's why it's called Yitro, about Yitro, who was a non-Jew, how he praised and he, they say, joined Moses and God. Because he heard that there was the splitting of the sea, and he heard that there was this war of Amalek, which that's in this week's Torah portion, which is in Parshas Bashalach. So Yitro, who said he was like the high priest of idolatry in the whole world, he said, now I know that God is greater than all of the other gods. He knew all the other gods, all the other powers, all the other tricks, all the other whatever's religions, all the other beliefs. And he said, when he saw the splitting of the sea and the Jews defeated Amalek, so he came. This was a preparation to the giving of the Torah. Okay, so now we can say that in detail, in Bashalach, the Jews leaving Egypt, Vayitro, and the Jews receiving the Torah, that both of them in a way are talking about receiving the Torah, preparation for receiving the Torah, and also the receiving for not just the Torah, but also the future. So again, the whole essence of Judaism is freedom from and freedom to. Freedom from what we are right now, and freedom to something much better. So even if now the situation is good, we already got out of Egypt 3,300 years ago, and we received the Torah 50 days later, and the situation is good, but it can be much better. And even when the Jews received the Torah, before they sinned with the golden calf, still there's something much better which was waiting for them. And that is Lati Lavo, the future. Torah Chadasha Mi'itetetze, when every Jew will feel the true essence of what the Torah and the commandments is. Torah and the commandments are. Essence is. The true essence of what the Torah and the commandments is. The true essence, the godliness in the Torah and the commandments. So when a Jew does a commandment, he'll really feel the inner connection with God. Like we just finished learning, the upper name of God. We see learns the Torah, feel it's coming from the upper name of God. Not just, the Torah is not just part of the world. The commandments are not part of the world. Take it or leave it. That the commandments are pure godliness. We don't feel that now. We'll feel that in the future. That's what it says, that why the Jews will come to the land of Israel, because they'll be built the temple, and the temple, only in the temple can you do all the commandments, and the Jews will want to do the commandments because they'll feel this upper name of God in every single commandment, every detail of every commandment. Okay, so let's talk about how these two things are a preparation for the future redemption, which then is really the whole point of Chabad Chassidut, is to make everybody crazy and dissatisfied until true godliness is revealed in the world. That's the purpose of the whole thing. And that can only be done by means of Mashiach. So therefore, we're crazy. We have to bring Mashiach as soon as possible. How are we going to do it? What do I have to do? So he says, I'll tell you what to do. This week's Torah portion is giving the hints. Bashalach, go out of Egypt and receive the Torah. We'll see. In Parshas Bashalach, there was the song at the sea. Shesaimu, it begins, Mikdash Hashem Konan Decha. How does the song end? Look in your Bible, and you'll see in this week's Torah portion, Bashalach, what chapters is it in? Here, I'll tell you in a second. Here we go. Ready? Chapter 14. And the song that the Jews sang, that's chapter 15. Chapter 15. From chapter 15, sentence 1 to sentence 27. Okay. So how does it end? How does this whole song end? Mikdash Hashem Konan Yadecha. The temple of God, they're singing to God, right? The temple of God, your hands will make. From this we learn, by the way, that God is going to be, that there's two opinions, but that God is going to personally bring the third temple from heaven. And we're going to bring up the doors, the gates or something. Anyway, Mikdash Hashem Konan Yadecha. The temple of God, the house of God, the holy temple, God is going to make with his hands, with B'shtei yadayim, with both hands, two hands. Amosai, when is he going to build them? Kasher yimloch Hashem yimloch l'olam v'ed. That's what it says afterwards. God will rule forever and ever. When is God going to build with his two hands personally, bring the third temple down from heaven? When is he going to do it? When in Lati Lavo in the future. That's what it says right after. When God rules forever and ever. Shekol HaMelucha, that the whole rulership People will see that science is not what's ruling the world, and that nature is not what's ruling the world. That God is ruling the world, and God is creating nature and is creating science and all these wonderful things. But people will see God and how good God is, and that God is creating me. Then God's going to be the king of the world. Then one of the things God's going to do is He's going to make the third temple, build it down. That's what we say at the end of the song that the Jews said at the end of the song that they sang after crossing the sea. Okay, that's another thing we see in this week's Torah portion is the war that the Jews fought against Amalek. In the end of this week's Torah portion, Shesaimu, it ends up, Macha Emcha et Zecher Amalek. God said, on that day, talking about, again, the days of the Mashiach, I will wipe out the memory, any mention of the name of Amalek, the memory of Amalek. Ki yad al case, God said, I raise my hand on the throne of God, Milchama, I will make a war with Amalek every generation. Nishba, according to God swore, She'ein Shemo Shalom, that his name is not complete, that his throne is not complete until he wipes out the name of Amalek. Like it says, like it says, Ha'oyev Tamu Charvot L'Netzach. Like it says, there will not be any more Iyov. I'm sorry. I'm not Ha'oyev. I'm sorry. The enemies say, where is this? This is in 29. In Tehillim, right? In Psalms. It says, the enemy will say, the enemies will say, an end will be put to swords forever. Ze Amalek, this is Amalek. Amalek is a nation, they hate Jews. That's it, they hate Jews. If you wonder why all these people nowadays are in the streets and saying they have to free Palestine and you have to get rid of the Jews, no more Jews, they hate the Jews, and what's wrong? What happened? A bunch of the Hamas people, they came and they raped and they killed and they burnt babies and they did these terrible things. And the Jews are at fault. The Jews are wrong. The Jews are there. The Jews. What happened? What's the wrong? What did the Jews do? They're killing our babies. Killing babies is bad. So you guys killed babies. No. The Jews. So it ends up there's no reason. The Rebbe, Lubavitcher Rebbe, I just saw a speech the Lubavitcher Rebbe gave. A speech, a short interview that he gave with some big official from Israel. I don't know who it was. And the Rebbe used to give out dollars every Sunday. People would go by and the Rebbe would give everybody $1. He said, I'm a Rebbe that doesn't take money. I give money. He gave money. Why did he give money to everybody? That everyone, to encourage people to give charity. Like I'm giving you, you can keep this $1, but give other dollars, give away. One person came, a big official in the Israeli government or a Knesset member, whatever. And he said, what do you have to say, Rebbe, about making deals, peace deals? So the Rebbe said, all of Israel belongs to God. You can't give anything away. If you give any part of it away, you're stealing from the Jewish people. So he said, but what about making peace? Right? If the whole world's going to hate us. So the Rebbe said, I'm from Russia. I know that in Russia, there was always pogroms, and there doesn't have to be a reason for them. You don't have to give the non-Jews a reason. The non-Jews hate the Jews because they hate the Jews. Whether you give back lands or you don't give back lands, they're going to hate you. So at least do what's right. Don't give back the lands. Don't give lands. He says, well, when is it going to stop? He says, God will decide. God will decide. But until God stops the hatred, them hating us, it's not in your hands. What is in your hands is you have to do what's right. You have to do what's right. Because in any case, the results are going to be negative. They're going to be negative. In other places, the Rebbe said that the only way that there'll be positive results is if our enemies see that you're strong, then they'll be which is no contradiction. If we're strong, then God will help us. At least we can accept God's help. However it's going to work, it will work out. But nevertheless, Amalek is this force that hates Jews no matter what, doesn't have to have a reason why. And until that stops, there can't be peace. And that's one of the things that Moshiach is going to do. He's going to fight the battles of God so that there won't be any more Amaleks in the world anymore. Anyway, Parshas Yisro and Parshat Yitro, that was in Parshas Bashalach. The things that God does, he's going to build a temple, he's going to destroy Amalek, he'll destroy Amalek first, and then he'll build a temple. And then he'll gather the Mashiach will destroy our enemies, deal with our enemies. That also could be just by education. And he'll build a third temple, and then he'll gather all the Jews. Then only that's going to bring all the Jews to Israel. It'll even not only bring the Jews to Israel, it'll bring even the Israelis back to Israel. Well, but Parshas Yisro and Parshas Yisro, it's explained Bedrushi Chasidut that Yitro, that's going to be next week's Torah portion. Why is his name Yitro? Yitro, because Yeter Parsha Achad, because there was added one whole chapter of the Torah, V'ata Techezeh, where he said, now you see. Techezeh, you see. Romans, this hints at Hosafa, an addition in the Torah that's going to be in the future. What's going to be in the future? The Torah is what's going to be new. It says a new Torah is going to be made. That's what the Midrash says. The Midrash says it'll be a new Torah. What does it mean? What's going to be added that we'll be able to see? We'll see the holiness in every letter and every commandment. We'll see it. We'll have to understand the Shir Hayam, the song on the sea, and the war of Amalek, and the how do you say the praises, the admissions of Yitro, and what's the connection to the completion of the giving the Torah in the future. And so all these things, building the temple, defeating Amalek, Yitro, praising God, suddenly saying, I'm not going to be an idolater anymore, praising God. What's this got to do with the future redemption? We're going to link all the whole thing together. So it says, Vayehi b'shalach paro, this week's Torah portion. Let's begin from the beginning. This week's Torah portion starts off with these words: Vayehi b'shalach paro, and it was when Paro sent the people. V'lo nacham Elokim, and God did not let them go Eretz Plishtin, through the land of Plishtin. Why? Ki karovhu, he didn't want them to go straight to Israel through the land of the Plishtim, which was close. Asheru karov, that it's close. The easy lenachotam, and it was easy. God could have just taken them through the Jews went wherever the cloud, there was a cloud of fire in the nighttime and a cloud which was not fire in the daytime that told them where to go, and they were surrounded by clouds of protection all the time. So they had to go wherever these clouds went. So God could have just taken them to the land of Israel. He didn't. He said, if it's too close, then they'll get the land of Israel, and one person will say, oh, just 1 second, you know what? I forgot, left the water running in my house. I'm going to go back to Egypt, right? Because they didn't want to go into the land of Israel, which in the end, we'll see they didn't want to go into the land of Israel anyway. So God didn't want it to be too close because he was afraid that when they got there, they would change their minds and go back. So therefore, he took them through this devious path. Derech Yashar, he didn't want them to go straight to go to the land of Israel, to get the land of Israel, Canaan, it was called. Vayasav Elokim at the that God made a detour derech Hamidbar, through the desert of Yam Suf. And therefore, they had to go through Kriyat Yam Suf. They had to go through the sea of the Yam Suf. And therefore, when they got over, they sang the song. They didn't have to go over the sea at all. That, and then afterward came the war of Amalek, and continuing both of them, the splitting of the sea and the war of Amalek. That's why Yitro praised God. That's why Yitro praised God. Okay. On the sentence Vanol Nacham, that God did not allow the Jews to go through a straight way, an easy way from Egypt to Israel. It says in the Midrash, Mi Mitzrayim le'Eretz Israel, from Egypt to go into Israel was 11 journeys. Sinai Desert, right? 11 journeys. Ella, but Nisam HaKodesh Baruch Hu, but God took them Derech HaMidbar, through a desert 40 years. Shnei Amar, like it says, Echad Achar Asar Yom Michorev, was 11 days from Chorev. So really 11 days, that's really all it took from Chorev is Mount Sinai. So 11 days from Mount Sinai, they could have received the Torah. They received the Torah 50 days after they left Egypt. And then 11 days later, they could have been in the land of Israel. But God said, no, I don't want it to be too easy. I want it to go. Because it wasn't easy, so therefore, they wandered around in the desert. And they got uneasy and they started complaining. And then they started liking the desert. They enjoyed it. And then they said, you know what? We're not going to go into the land of Israel. We don't want to go. Therefore, it took them 40 years. God said, this whole generation, I'm going to let them die. You don't want to go into Israel? Okay, stay in the desert. They stayed in the desert for 40 years. Therefore, Ne'amar, it says, Lo nacham Elokim, that God did not allow them to take the easy way into Egypt, into Israel from Egypt. They could have gone 11 journeys and they would have been in. They explained, what does it mean? In Yud Aleph Masod, what are these 11 journeys that God took them through the desert 40 years in a good way? Let's explain this good. At first glance, it's terrible. What are you talking about? It's terrible. Right? You tell your wife, I'll be right back. Your wife says, okay, but there's 11 things I want you to do, right? You go to the meat store, you go to the butcher, I want you to buy some silverware. I want you 11 things. It's okay, I'll be home. This is going to take me maybe about 2 hours. 40 years later, hello, what is it? It's your husband coming back. What? That took you so long? And don't ask, the golden calf and all sorts of stuff. It doesn't make any sense. Says the Rebbe, I want to explain how this 11-day journey that took 40 years is a good thing. How so? That what it says 11 journeys, it says in the Midrash, Shekai, this is talking about Echad Asar, Miuchad Shabasara. In Hebrew, we say Echad Asar, 110. 110. I guess we sort of do that in English, right? 16. But 11 we don't do. 12 also not. I guess we'd also 12. 2. 12, that means 10. Anyway, in Hebrew we say Yud Aleph Masaot means 110 Masaot. That's how we say Echad Asar. This is the one, the unique one of the 10. Shu Echad, this is the one which is the head of all of the 10 commandments. What is the one that is the head of the 10 commandments? God. Anochi, I am God, your God. Hainu she'echad asar yom, that's the 11 days from Chorev. Chorev is where they received the Torah. This indicates on the one. Echad asar means the 110. The 11th 110. This is the one which is above the 10 commandments that they received. It was they received 10 commandments, but you can't forget that the 10 commandments come from the one God. Chorev. And that's the Anochi Hashem Elokecha. That's the oneness of God, the Anochi, which is the first word of the 10 commandments. That's to remind them that this is the commandments are coming from this level of God, which is called Antu Chad, God, you are one, but not a numeric one. Mehuto Vatzmuto, God's essence, which is above all of the other sphirot. That's the one. And we can say that the intention of God to do this, why God did not let them go through just the 11 journeys, and rather God took them through the desert for 40 years, is because these 11 journeys, Echad Asar, this one God on the 10 commandments that they received on Mount Sinai at Chorev, this is the level of God which is one, which is not countable, which is above all the 10 sphirot, etc. It should be drawn down internally by means of them going for 40 years. In other words, God didn't want them to take the Torah as a separate thing from themselves. I got the Torah. They wanted them to feel integrated totally with the Torah. That is hinted at by taking the Torah internally, the true value of the Torah, namely the oneness of God in the Torah. That's hinted at by the number 40. Like it says, Ben Arba'im Labina. It says a person that's 40 years old, he understands. 40 years. And that's what Moses said to the Jewish people right before they entered the land of Israel without him. He says, you've been wandering around in the desert for 40 years. God has not given you a heart to understand or eyes to see until now. 40 years it takes a person to really reach some sort of a level of realization of what it means, the godliness of the Torah. Ubahem Natan Hashem lochem leiv ladat. Says now God has given you a heart to know and eyes to see and ears to hear. She'ein adam omed al sof dato sharabo. A person cannot really reach the true level of his teacher and the wisdom of his teachings until 40 years. That then is a revelation of this level of 11. And the Rebbe is going to say that, by the way, this is like the 40th year that the Rebbe was the Rebbe, right? The previous Rebbe passed away in 1950, and the Rebbe took over in 1951, and 40 years later is 1991. Not only that, the Moshiach, they revealed this level of one also in this physical world. That's the idea of going into the land of Israel completely after 40 years. That's why the number 40. And this is the thing is caused by Paro, that Paro sent the people. That this indicates that Paro of Kedusha. Remember, we learned Paro means to be opened, revealed, Priya. Like it says, Chamishit LaParo. As Priya, there is revealed, all of the upper lights are revealed through Paro. We're going to go over this again because we're doing it quickly. The class is really ended already. That's the reason why that God didn't let them go through a quick way, because he wanted it to take 40 years so that they could internalize all of the godliness of the Torah inside of them, and that's reached the level of Paro, which Paro, that's the beginning, revealing all of the lights of God, the highest level. We said that's what Paro in holiness is. Remember we learned last week about Paro, the holiness, the ultimate holiness from which all lights of God are revealed. That's indicated by Paro, that they should take it into an internal way. And this is also hinted by the song of Dvar, which is the Haftorah of this week. It says, B'pro Paros B'Yisrael. It says, Arba'im Shana, 40 years. We'll look at the song of Dvar. We'll look at that tomorrow. This is revealed, Paro Praot, it says that God, they made like victories, whatever it is. This shows that God is revealing, Paro means the upper highest lights of holiness are being revealed to every single Jew, and not just revealed in an outside way, but they can be internalized and taken into their personality and carried with them even in the physical land. That's the whole purpose of going out of Egypt, receiving the Torah, and what Moshiach is going to accomplish, which we hope will be right now. So that's the good thing about the 40 years that they were in the desert, that they could internalize this 11, the one God which gave the 10 commandments. As we'll talk about more, God willing, tomorrow.